The massive crystalline dome of the Galactic Council's judgment chamber sparkled like a cosmos of its own, housing representatives from over 3,000 civilizations. Admiral Jackson Porter stood alone on the central platform, the sole human amidst the greatest gathering of power in the known universe. His weathered face remained calm despite the gravity of the situation. Earth's very existence hung in the balance. Rising hundreds of meters above him, tiered seating wrapped around the chamber in a perfect circle. Each section glowed with different atmospheric conditions to accommodate the diverse biological needs of the council members. Some sections bubbled with liquid ammonia, others glowed with radioactive heat, while many maintained standard oxygen environments. Species designation, human. Planet designation, Earth, announced High Arbiter Vrex, a towering insectoid whose compound eyes glittered with cold calculation. Standing nearly 4 meters tall, his chitinous exoskeleton gleamed under the chamber's lights. You stand accused of biological contamination, technological theft, and dangerous evolutionary anomalies. The Admiral's first diplomatic mission beyond the solar system had turned into a trial for humanity's right to exist. Only 3 months earlier, Earth had made its first contact with the galactic community when a scout ship arrived in orbit. That moment of wonder had quickly soured when the visitors declared Earth a contamination risk and established a quarantine. The Council has voted, Vrex continued, his mandibles clicking together. Quarantine is insufficient. Earth will be cleansed. Porter's jaw clenched, but he showed no fear. The amphitheater erupted in approval, chittering, rumbling, and electronic buzzes signaling agreement across 100 different communication spectrums. I request the right of demonstration, Porter stated calmly. A hush fell over the chamber. The right of demonstration was rarely invoked, an ancient law allowing condemned species one final opportunity to display their value. Denied, Vrex clicked. Your species has already demonstrated its dangerous nature. Then you admit you fear what we might show you, Porter replied, his voice carrying across the chamber without technology. The Luxari ambassador, a being of pure light and thought, pulsed with sudden interest, its voice translated as harmonics that resonated throughout the chamber. Let the human demonstrate. Our archives show no record of this right being denied in 8 million cycles. Other representatives joined in support, not out of sympathy for humanity, but from adherence to their ancient laws. The Council prided itself on procedural perfection. Reluctantly, Vrex nodded. You have one rotation. What will you demonstrate? Porter smiled for the first time. Not me. I've called for a single human child. Murmurs of confusion rippled through the chamber. What could a human child possibly demonstrate that would save their world? The massive doors parted and a small figure entered. 12-year-old Maya Walker, an unremarkable girl from Tanzania, walked confidently toward the platform. She carried nothing but a small wooden box. This is your demonstration. Vrex laughed, the sound like grinding stones. A juvenile with a primitive container? The most dangerous thing in this room, Porter replied quietly. Maya placed the box on the floor and opened it. Inside lay simple objects, a piece of chalk, a small mirror, some soil, and a seed. The Council has reviewed our technology, our weapons, our sciences, Porter explained. But you've missed what humanity truly is. Enlighten us, Admiral, purred Delegate Thorne of the Palaxian Confederation, his fur rippling with amusement. What miraculous quality does your primitive species possess that 3,000 advanced civilizations have overlooked? Maya took the chalk and began to draw on the floor. As the aliens watched with growing curiosity, she created intricate patterns, mathematical formulas unknown even to their advanced civilizations. Her small hands moved with precision, leaving perfect symbols that seemed to shimmer with their own inner light. These patterns, whispered a silicon-based observer. They shouldn't be possible. They describe quantum relationships even our supercomputers cannot model. When Maya placed the mirror in the center of her chalk creation, light refracted through it in impossible ways, creating a holographic display that showed the quantum structures of reality itself. Colors that shouldn't exist danced through the air, forming images of worlds and possibilities. No technology detected, reported a security drone hovering near the platform. The human child is using no devices beyond the primitive objects. She mixed the soil with her own tears, planted the seed, and within minutes, Through some inexplicable combination of the chalk equations and light refraction, a plant grew and flowered before their eyes, defying all known laws of biology. The blossom that opened was unlike anything on Earth, its petals containing galaxies in miniature. The council chamber fell silent in shock. "What you see is not technology," Porter explained, his voice echoing in the stunned silence. "What humans possess cannot be measured by your sensors or understood by your sciences. The child has demonstrated what you fear, humanity's connection to the fundamental fabric of reality itself." "Impossible," Vrex whispered. But the evidence stood before them. Maya looked up at the thousands of alien beings and spoke for the first time. "We call it imagination, and we've only just begun to discover what it can do." The chamber erupted into chaos. Representatives demanded explanations. Others called for immediate action. The Luxari ambassador's light pulsed with intense patterns as it analyzed what it had witnessed. "Order," Vrex demanded, slamming his armored limb against the podium. "Order in the council." Gradually, the tumult subsided. Vrex's compound eyes studied Maya with new intensity. "The human demonstration requires further investigation," he announced. "The cleansing is suspended pending a full inquiry." Porter allowed himself a small smile. They had won a reprieve, but nothing more. "A delegation will travel to Earth," Vrex continued. "They will determine if this ability is unique to the child or common to your species. They will assess whether it represents a threat to galactic stability. And if they determine it is a threat," Porter asked, "then the cleansing will proceed," Vrex replied without emotion, with even greater urgency. As Porter and Maya were escorted from the chamber, the girl whispered, "I only showed them a fraction of what we can do." Porter nodded grimly. "That's what worries me. We've convinced them we're not insignificant. Now they'll wonder if we're too significant to allow to exist." Back on their small diplomatic vessel, Earth's delegation celebrated their temporary victory. Only Porter remained reserved, staring out at the artificial planet that housed the council headquarters. A perfect sphere of impossible materials, housing millions of different environments. "What happens now?" asked Dr. Elena Kapoor, the mission's lead scientist. "Now we prepare for their investigation," Porter replied. "They'll be looking for weaknesses, for limits to this ability Maya demonstrated. And if they find them?" Elena asked. "Then humanity ends." Porter turned from the viewport. "Maya bought us time, but we need more than a demonstration now. We need to understand our own abilities before they arrive." Maya sat quietly in a corner, drawing more patterns with her chalk on the ship's floor. "The patterns she drew," Elena whispered. "They're not just mathematical. They're changing the quantum probability fields around us." "I can almost see it. Can you reproduce them?" Porter asked. "Not exactly," Elena admitted. "But I think I could learn. I think any human could with the right teaching." Porter looked back at the council headquarters growing smaller as their ship departed. "Then we have weeks to become what we've always had the potential to be. Let's hope it's enough." As their ship entered hyperspace, something unprecedented occurred in the council chamber. The chalk patterns Maya had drawn remained, despite cleaning drones' best efforts to remove them. And where the plant had grown, more were sprouting, plants that shouldn't exist, with properties that defied categorization. The council had just glimpsed humanity's true nature, and it had shaken the foundations of their understanding of reality itself. What they couldn't know was that this was merely the beginning, the first small hint of what humanity would become when it fully awakened to its true potential. The investigation was coming. Earth had to be ready. Director Ilara Ndoye of Earth's diplomatic corps stood at the viewport of the Galactic Council observation vessel, watching as it entered Earth's atmosphere. The massive ship, shaped like a flattened hexagon with crystalline protrusions along its hull, dwarfed anything humanity had ever built. Its shadow passed over the Atlantic Ocean, causing temporary darkness on the water below. 3 weeks had passed since Admiral Porter and young Maya had secured Earth's temporary reprieve, but this was far from over. The Council's investigation team had arrived, and with them came the weight of humanity's future. "Your world is chaotic," remarked Thalox, the Council's chief investigator, a crystalline entity whose transparent body pulsed with blue energy. His frame stood nearly 3 meters tall, faceted like a diamond with countless surfaces that reflected light in hypnotic patterns. His team of 7 diverse aliens followed behind him, each specialized in different forms of analysis. We call it vibrant, Ilara replied with a diplomatic smile, though I understand how it might appear to your eyes. The Council had dispatched this elite investigation team to determine whether humanity truly possessed this mysterious connection to reality's fabric or if Maya's demonstration had been an elaborate trick. Their findings would decide Earth's fate. The ship descended toward a remote research facility in the Himalayas, the agreed-upon location for the investigation. Built into the mountainside, it offered isolation while still showcasing Earth's natural splendor. Snow-capped peaks surrounded the complex, their ancient presence a stark contrast to the alien technology now entering their domain. We will require access to a statistically significant sample of your population, stated Missouri, a gaseous entity who specialized in biological analysis. His form swirled within a containment field, colors shifting from purple to green as he spoke. Random selection across age groups. All arranged, Ilara nodded. Though I should warn you, what you're looking for may not be detectable by your instruments. All phenomena can be measured, Thalox responded dismissively. If this imagination exists as you claim, we will quantify it. Inside the facility, Professor Ryota Takahashi, Earth's leading neurophysicist, had prepared a series of experiments. 50 human volunteers of varying ages, backgrounds, and abilities waited in observation rooms. The walls were lined with both human and alien monitoring equipment, creating a strange hybrid of technologies. We'll begin with baseline neurological readings, Ryota explained, adjusting his glasses, then progress to controlled creative exercises. The investigation proceeded methodically. The aliens recorded brain activity as humans performed tasks ranging from mathematical problem-solving to artistic creation. Artists painted landscapes that shouldn't exist. Musicians composed pieces that caused measurable fluctuations in local quantum fields, and children built impossible structures with simple blocks. Days passed, and the investigators grew increasingly frustrated. Their instruments detected anomalies but could not explain them. There are anomalous energy patterns, Missouri admitted during a private meeting with Thalox, his gaseous form condensing with concern. But they don't correspond to any known form of consciousness enhancement. They're manipulating the results, insisted Krev, the security specialist, whose exoskeleton bristled with sensors. His insectoid body clicked with agitation. No species could naturally manifest the abilities we witnessed. On the 6th day, an unexpected development occurred. 7-year-old volunteer Davi Oliveira was undergoing standard creativity assessment when the monitoring equipment began to malfunction. The holographic testing environment glitched, then transformed, responding not to programmed parameters but to Davies' thoughts. I wanted to see dinosaurs, the boy explained, innocently as lifelike prehistoric creatures roamed through the testing chamber. The Tyrannosaurus rex that materialized looked not like modern reconstructions, but displayed features paleontologists had only theorized: accurate coloration, behavior, and even sounds that had never been recorded. The aliens' equipment registered no technology, no external signals, no explanation for the manifestation. This proves nothing, Thalox insisted, though uncertainty had crept into his voice. The boy could be using undetected technology. Scan him again, ordered Krev. The scans showed nothing, just a normal human child with slightly elevated brain activity. Ilara suggested a final test. Take one of our volunteers to a location of your choosing. No Earth technology, no preparation. See what happens. The alien selected Marcus Reed, an unremarkable middle-aged librarian from Dublin. With his balding head and comfortable sweater, he seemed the least impressive of all the test subjects. They transported him to their ship and placed him in an isolation chamber, designed to block all forms of known energy. Create something, Thalox demanded. I'll need materials, Marcus replied reasonably, his Irish accent pronounced under stress. That's the point, Missouri bubbled. You claim to need nothing. Marcus closed his eyes. What I need, then, is a story. What happened next would confound the alien investigators for years to come. As Marcus began to tell a tale of his own invention, the isolation chamber's monitoring systems detected reality fluctuations. Quantum probability fields shifted. The very atoms in the chamber began to arrange themselves according to the narrative patterns of his story. As Marcus described an ancient forest, Microscopic particles in the air formed the faint, ghostly image of trees. When he spoke of characters, shadows that shouldn't exist danced across the walls. The temperature in the room changed to match the settings in his story. Cooling during winter scenes, warming during summer ones. Enough. Thalox commanded, genuinely disturbed. That night, the investigation team met in secret aboard their vessel. Their minds are tethered to the quantum substrate, Missouri theorized, his gaseous form swirling with excitement. It's as if reality itself responds to their conscious direction. This makes them more dangerous than we imagined. Krev clicked anxiously. If they learn to control this ability, perhaps, offered Elo, the philosopher among them whose gelatinous form shimmered with neural activity. We should consider what they might become, not what they are. Unbeknownst to the aliens, Ilara listened through a surveillance system of her own. The investigation had revealed more than she'd hoped, but also confirmed her worst fears. The Council now understood enough to be truly afraid of humanity's potential. And fear, throughout the galaxy, had always been the precursor to extinction. Back at the facility, Professor Takahashi compiled the data from all test subjects. The patterns were unmistakable. Every human possessed this connection to quantum reality to some degree. Some, like Maya, showed extraordinary capability. Others demonstrated only minor effects, but the potential existed in all of them. We need to accelerate the training program, he told Admiral Porter, who had returned from Council space. If the Council decides we're a threat, we need to be ready. Porter nodded grimly. They already have. My sources in the Council report that a cleansing fleet is being assembled. They're not waiting for the investigation to conclude. How long do we have? Weeks, maybe less. Porter stared out at the Himalayan peaks. We need to evacuate the major population centers, move people underground. No, a small voice interrupted. Maya Walker entered the room, her presence somehow larger than her physical form. Hiding won't save us now. What do you suggest? Porter asked, not dismissing her despite her age. We need to show them what happens when they threaten us, Maya replied, her eyes reflecting something ancient and powerful. Not violence. Something they can't fight against. What do you mean? Takahashi asked. Maya smiled. We need to change reality. That night, as Earth's leaders debated evacuation plans and defense strategies, the alien investigation team received an emergency transmission from the Council. Thalox's crystalline form vibrated with alarm as he viewed the message. We must accelerate our timetable, he informed his team. The Council has received disturbing information about human capabilities. The cleansing cannot wait for our final report. But we haven't determined if they represent a genuine threat, protested Elo, the philosopher. Their abilities are remarkable, but they've shown no hostility. The potential threat is sufficient, Thalox replied coldly. The Council will not risk another quantum schism. Unmentioned in the official record, the quantum schism was the darkest chapter in Council history. When an ancient race had developed similar abilities and nearly collapsed the structure of reality before being eliminated, Thalox prepared to inform Earth's representatives of their imminent doom. Alarms blared throughout the ship. Outside, the sky was changing. The stars were moving, rearranging themselves into patterns that shouldn't be possible. What's happening? Demanded Krev, his sensors going haywire. Thalox rushed to the viewport. What he saw defied explanation. The Earth itself seemed to be shifting, not physically but conceptually, as if it were becoming more than itself, expanding into adjacent probabilities. They've begun, Elo whispered in awe. They're changing their relationship with reality. The investigation had triggered something unexpected, humanity's collective awakening to its true nature. And the cosmos was responding in ways that even the ancient council had never witnessed. The orbital defense platforms surrounding Earth went dark simultaneously. One moment, the 12 satellites designed to protect Earth from cosmic threats were transmitting normally. The next, they vanished from all monitoring systems. General Diana Reynolds stared at the monitoring screens in Earth Defense Command, her face illuminated by the flashing red emergency lights. A former fighter pilot with 20 years of military service, she had never witnessed anything like this. What the hell just happened? She demanded, her voice cutting through the panicked chatter of the command center. Unknown, General, her chief technician responded, fingers flying across multiple interfaces. No energy signatures, no debris. They're just gone. Within minutes, reports flooded in from all 16 Earth space stations. Massive objects had appeared at the edge of the solar system. The long-range telescopes showed what looked like tears in space itself, dark shapes moving against the stars, a fleet of unknown origin, not matching any Galactic Council configuration. In the Himalayan facility, the Council's investigation team received emergency communication from their homeworlds. Thalox's crystalline form vibrated with alarm as he approached Alara, who had been monitoring the situation through Earth's military channels. "You've brought this upon yourselves," he accused, his normally blue energy now pulsing red with agitation. "The Voidborn have awakened. The who?" Professor Takahashi asked, looking up from his data analysis. "Ancient enemies of all ordered life," Missouri explained, fear evident in his fluctuating gaseous form. "They exist in the spaces between realities, awakened by significant quantum disturbances, like those created by human imagination," Elo added solemnly, his gelatinous body rippling with concern. The situation deteriorated rapidly. The Voidborn fleet, if such biological ships could be called a fleet, had bypassed the outer planets in hours, moving in ways that defied physics. Their strange organic vessels absorbed light and energy, appearing as tears in the fabric of space itself. Where they passed, reality seemed to warp and distort. Within 12 hours, Earth governments declared global emergency. Panic spread as the strange ships entered the inner solar system, their presence causing unexplainable phenomena. In orbit around Mars, gravity reversed for 17 seconds. Near Venus, time began flowing backwards in a localized field, causing observatory equipment to record events before they happened. The Galactic Council, faced with the threat of Voidborn expansion beyond Earth, dispatched a containment fleet, not to defend humanity, but to ensure the threat remained isolated to the Sol system. Their massive battleships took positions at the system's edge. Weapons pointed inward. "They're sacrificing Earth," Admiral Porter realized, watching from the United Nations emergency session as the Council fleet formed a perimeter, containing the outbreak they believe we caused. Communications from the Council confirmed his suspicions. Earth would receive no assistance. The Voidborn, dormant for millions of years, had been awakened by humanity's unique mental connection to the quantum substrate. Earth would serve as bait, keeping the Voidborn occupied while the Council developed a more permanent solution. "We need to evacuate," suggested the Secretary General, his face pale with fear. "To where?" Alara asked bitterly. "The Council has closed all transit gates. We're trapped." As the first Voidborn vessels entered Earth orbit, strange phenomena began occurring globally. Reality itself seemed to warp in their presence. Matter transformed. Physical laws became suggestions rather than rules. In Moscow, gravity reversed in a 10-block radius, buildings and people floating upward before crashing down when the effect ended. In Buenos Aires, time began flowing backward for hours before resuming normal flow, leaving residents with memories of events that hadn't yet happened. The investigation team, stranded on Earth by their own Council's quarantine, found themselves allied with the humans they had been studying. "There may be a way," Elo suggested during a desperate strategy session at the Himalayan facility. "If human consciousness truly affects quantum reality, you're suggesting we use the variability that attracted them to repel them?" Professor Takahashi asked incredulously, running his hands through his disheveled hair. "Precisely," the alien philosopher confirmed. "Not individually, but collectively." Maya Walker, who had been quiet through much of the crisis, spoke up. "He's right. The Voidborn feed on quantum instability, the kind created by undirected imagination. But focused intent might be different. A plan formed, desperate, likely futile, but the only option remaining. Using the global emergency broadcast system, Earth governments issued an unprecedented request. At a designated time, every human on the planet would focus their imagination on a single purpose: the rejection of the Voidborn from reality itself. Scientists coordinated with artists to create visualization aids. Religious leaders of all faiths led their congregations in prayer and meditation. Children were taught simple visualization techniques through emergency broadcasts. For perhaps the first time in human history, a single goal united the entire species. "It won't work," Thalox stated flatly as he observed the preparations. "Consciousness cannot directly affect macro reality to this degree. Diana Reynolds, who had joined the Himalayan Command Center, smiled grimly. Then you still don't understand what humanity really is. The countdown began. Across the planet, humans of every nation, age, and belief focused their minds on a single shared vision. In the sky, the void-borne vessels had descended through the atmosphere, hovering over major population centers. Their presence caused reality to blur. Buildings phased in and out of existence, animals transformed into impossible forms, and the boundary between thought and matter began to dissolve. At precisely noon Greenwich Mean Time, 8 billion human minds focused on a single image, Earth whole, protected, the void-born banished back to the void between realities. For a moment nothing seemed to happen. Then a subtle vibration passed through everything, not a physical tremor but a shudder in the fabric of reality itself. In orbit, the void-borne vessels paused, as if sensing something unexpected. Their dark surfaces rippled with disturbance. In the Himalayan Command Center, monitoring equipment registered unprecedented quantum fluctuations. Reality itself seemed to vibrate with the concentrated mental energy of humanity. Impossible, whispered Thalox, watching as the readouts exceeded all theoretical limits. This defies every known law of physics. Not defies, Professor Takahashi corrected. Transcends. On the main view screen, they watched as the void-borne ships began to fragment. Not exploding, not breaking apart, but unraveling at their quantum foundations as if reality itself rejected their existence. The tiers in space they had created began to seal themselves, the natural order reasserting itself through the collective human will. What no one had anticipated, however, was the feedback effect. As the void-borne dissolved, the quantum energy they released flowed back through the same channels created by human consciousness. Every person on Earth simultaneously experienced a moment of expanded awareness, not just of each other, but of the underlying structures of reality itself. In that moment, humanity changed forever. Children opened eyes that now perceived quantum possibilities as naturally as colors. Artists found they could manifest their creations with a thought. Scientists suddenly understood principles they had struggled with for decades. Even the most skeptical felt the shift. A new relationship with reality itself. When the feedback subsided, the void-borne had vanished completely. But Earth's orbital satellites and defense platforms had not only returned, they had transformed, now incorporating technologies that even the Galactic Council had never imagined. In the command center, young Maya opened eyes that now shimmered with quantum potentialities visible to all. "I understand now," she said, her voice somehow both childlike and ancient. "We weren't just imagining them away. We were remembering what we really are." The alien investigation team watched in stunned silence as humans throughout the facility exhibited new abilities, not superhuman powers from fiction, but something more profound, a conscious awareness of and control over their connection to the quantum substrate of reality. Professor Takahashi could now perceive the underlying equations of physics simply by observing natural phenomena. Diana Reynolds discovered she could sense the emotional states of others as tangible energy patterns. Even Marcus the librarian found he could access information beyond his personal knowledge, as if reality itself had become a database he could query with his thoughts. "What is happening to your species?" Missouri asked, both fascinated and terrified. Ilara, herself changed by the experience, struggled to explain. "It's as if we've been sleepwalking our entire evolutionary history. The void-borne didn't come to consume us, they came in response to our awakening, perhaps as a test, perhaps as a catalyst. The cosmic equivalent of antibodies responding to a new organism," Professor Takahashi suggested. Reports flooded in from around the world. The changes varied in expression but shared a common theme. Humanity was becoming conscious of its place in the deeper structures of existence. The Galactic Council emergency session chamber was in chaos. Unlike the Grand Judgment Hall where humanity had first been tried, this smaller amphitheater housed only the 300 most powerful representatives. Their voices rose in a cacophony of different communication methods, sonic vibrations, light pulses, chemical emissions, and telepathic broadcasts all competing for attention. High Arbiter Vrek stood at the central podium, his insectoid form now adorned with the full regalia of his office, crystalline armor that amplified his authority. Yet even this symbol of power failed to calm the assembled delegates. Order! I demand order! Frex's voice boomed through specialized translators, cutting through the noise. Gradually, the chamber quieted. The human situation has escalated beyond containment parameters. Frex continued when silence fell. Our fleet was unable to neutralize the threat. Projected above the chamber, images showed the Council warships retreating from Earth. Their weapon systems completely neutralized by forces the Council's best scientists still couldn't explain. The humans have achieved what we have long feared. Frex's mandibles clicked with tension. Conscious manipulation of the quantum substrate. The ascension paradigm has begun. Gasps and alarms spread through the assembly. The ascension paradigm was more myth than history to most, a theoretical state where a species transcended conventional physical limitations through direct mental connection to reality's foundation. Impossible, declared the hegemon of the Drax Imperium, his scaled body rising from his gravity couch. No biological species can achieve this without technological assistance. The evidence suggests otherwise, replied the Luxari ambassador, its light form pulsing with complex patterns. Our investigation team's data is conclusive. The humans are doing this naturally. Then we must assemble the Omega fleet, the hegemon insisted. Every weapons platform, every phase disruptor. We cannot allow another quantum schism. As the Council debated humanity's fate, unaware they were being observed, events on Earth continued to unfold at an accelerating pace. In the transformed Himalayan facility, now a sprawling complex of structures that seemed to exist partially in other dimensions, Admiral Porter met with Earth's new leadership council. The room itself responded to their thoughts, reshaping to accommodate their needs, walls becoming transparent or opaque as required. The council is planning a full-scale assault, Porter informed them. His consciousness now able to perceive transmissions across vast distances. They're afraid of what we're becoming. Professor Takahashi, whose understanding of physics had expanded beyond theoretical limits, nodded gravely. With good reason. The changes are accelerating. Children born in the last week are exhibiting abilities far beyond what any of us demonstrated initially. Displayed on a wall that functioned as both window and screen, data showed the progression. The first generation of post-event humans, those who had experienced the void-born feedback, had developed enhanced consciousness. The second generation, those born after, seemed to arrive already connected to the quantum substrate. Maya Walker, now treated as something between an advisor and a prophet, sat quietly in the corner. At 14, her abilities had progressed faster than any other humans. She could perceive the underlying mathematics of existence as easily as others saw color. They won't attack immediately, she said suddenly. They're afraid but also curious. They want to understand before they destroy. Can we communicate with them? Asked Alara. Make them understand we're not a threat? To their way of thinking, we are the ultimate threat, Porter replied. We represent an evolutionary path they deliberately abandoned millions of years ago. This was the revelation that Elo, the philosophical member of the investigation team, had shared before departing with his colleagues. The council species had once possessed similar potential, but had chosen technology over consciousness development, fearing the unpredictability of minds directly connected to quantum reality. Then we prepare for their attack. General Reynolds concluded. Her abilities had evolved toward strategic perception. She could visualize probability chains for any conflict, seeing victories and defeats spread out like branching paths. No, Maya interrupted. Fighting is the old way. We need to show them what we're really becoming. Outside the facility, Earth continued its transformation. The quantum awakening had sparked unprecedented cooperation among humans. Old conflicts seemed petty when everyone could directly perceive others' thoughts and emotions. Nations still existed, but borders had become conceptual. Rather than physical, humans could now travel almost instantly by shifting their quantum relationship to space. The environment itself responded to humanity's new consciousness. Pollution began to dissipate as humans learned to restructure matter at the quantum level. Dead zones in oceans revitalized as people extended their awareness into the biosphere. The planet was healing itself through human intention. In orbit, the transformed defense platforms had become something else entirely. Not weapons, but consciousness amplifiers that extended humanity's awareness outward. Through them, humans could perceive distant star systems, communicate across vast distances, and monitor the Council's movements. It was through these platforms that they detected the approach of a single Council vessel, smaller than a warship, designations identifying it as a diplomatic craft. "They're sending an envoy," Porter announced. "A final attempt to understand before they commit to destruction." "Who are they sending?" Alara asked. Porter's eyes unfocused briefly as he accessed the platform's data. "High Arbiter Vrex himself." The news sent ripples of surprise through the Leadership Council. For the head of the Galactic Council to come personally was unprecedented. "He's afraid," Maya stated with certainty, but also hopeful. "Part of him wants to understand what we've become." When Vrex's ship entered Earth orbit, it was met not by military vessels but by a single human in a spacesuit, Admiral Porter, floating freely in space, protected by nothing more than standard equipment and his enhanced consciousness. "This is most irregular, Admiral." Vrex's voice came through Porter's communication system. "Our protocols require formal reception." "We've moved beyond protocols, High Arbiter," Porter replied calmly. "If you truly want to understand what humanity has become, you'll need to experience it directly." After a hesitation, Vrex agreed to shuttle down with a small security team. They landed not at a military base or government facility, but in an ordinary public park in Geneva. Children played nearby, their games now including manipulation of probability fields that made balls curve in impossible arcs, and toy structures stand despite defying physics. Vrex, towering over the humans in his environmental suit, watched the children with his compound eyes. "They're altering local reality," he observed. "Without training or technology. It comes naturally now," Porter explained. "Like learning to walk." The High Arbiter's security team maintained a defensive posture, their weapons ready despite being functionally useless in Earth's transformed quantum field. "You requested this meeting, High Arbiter," Porter continued. "What do you hope to learn?" Vrex's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. "The Council faces an unprecedented situation. Your species has achieved in months what the ancient texts suggested would take millennia. I came to determine if you represent the threat our ancestors feared." "And what threat was that?" "The dissolution of ordered reality," Vrex replied. "The ancient records speak of a time before the Council, when species who manipulated the quantum substrate through consciousness caused great catastrophes. Reality itself became unstable. Entire star systems collapsed into probability clouds." Porter nodded. "We've seen that possibility, but we've also seen another path." At a gesture from Porter, Maya Walker approached. The High Arbiter's security team tensed, but their weapons powered down involuntarily. Not through technology, but because Maya's presence made the concept of harm temporarily incomprehensible to them. "You remember me," she said simply. "The child with the box," Vrex acknowledged. "You have changed." "We all have," Maya replied. "I would like to show you something if you're willing." "What would that entail?" Vrex asked cautiously. "A temporary connection to how we perceive reality now," Maya explained. "Just a glimpse, but enough to understand." After consulting with his security team, Vrex agreed. Maya reached out, not touching him physically, but connecting at a deeper level. For just moments, the High Arbiter experienced reality as humans now did. Seeing the quantum connections between all things, perceiving the mathematical beauty underlying existence, feeling the profound interconnection of all consciousness. When it ended, Vrex staggered, his massive form nearly collapsing before his security team stabilized him. "Impossible," he chittered, his translator struggling to convey his emotion. "You've achieved harmonic quantum consciousness without phase dissolution. The text said this couldn't be done. Your ancestors chose a different path," Porter said. "They weren't wrong to be cautious. But they missed a possibility, that consciousness could evolve to manipulate quantum reality while maintaining coherence." 5 years after the Voidborn incident, Earth had become unrecognizable, not physically, but in its relationship to the rest of the galaxy. The planet still had its blue oceans, green continents, and swirling white cloud patterns, but now it glowed with an inner light visible from space, a radiance that came from humanity's conscious connection to the quantum substrate. The Himalayan facility, once a simple research center, had evolved into something between a university and a temple. The buildings seemed to exist partially in other dimensions, their architecture flowing and shifting subtly as visitors moved through them. Gardens bloomed with plants that responded directly to human thought, flowers blossoming in colors that had no names in any language. Ilara Ndoye, now Earth's ambassador to the stars, walked with Ilo through these impossible gardens. The philosophical alien had broken with the Council, choosing to remain on Earth as an observer and student of humanity's transformation. His gelatinous form had changed too. After years of studying with humans, he had developed a rudimentary connection to the quantum substrate himself. The Council has proposed peace talks for the 5th time, Ilo informed her, his translucent body rippling with subtle patterns. This time they're offering full recognition of Earth's sovereign status. We've never been at war with them, Ilara replied, pausing to admire a flower that bloomed with tiny galaxies in its petals. They've been at war with the idea of us. Across Earth, humanity continued to evolve not biologically but consciously. Children born after the Voidborn event possessed innate abilities that their parents had to learn, perceiving quantum relationships, intuiting the mathematical underpinnings of existence, affecting probability through focused intention. Yet outwardly, life remained recognizably human. People still loved, argued, created art, played sports, and wondered about their place in the universe. They simply did so with expanded awareness. Markets still operated, though now based on principles of quantum value rather than arbitrary currencies. Nations maintained their cultural identities while sharing a single consciousness network that made deception impossible and warfare unthinkable. In orbit, Admiral Porter, now well past retirement age but kept young by his evolved consciousness, commanded Earth's first true starship, the Realization. Unlike the clumsy vessels that had once carried humans to their own moon, this ship was partly physical construction, partly manifested thought, capable of traveling not just through space but through the quantum pathways that connected all points in the universe. The ship resembled a perfect sphere of swirling silver and blue, its surface constantly shifting like liquid metal. Inside, corridors and chambers formed as needed, responding to the intentions of the crew. "We're ready for the first journey," his executive officer, Commander Oliveira, reported. The same Davy who had manifested dinosaurs during the investigation was now a brilliant young officer. His uniform, like those of all Earth's new space service, was simple and elegant, dark blue fabric that seemed to contain pinpoints of starlight. "Not quite yet," Porter replied, his aged face creased with a smile. "We're waiting for our observer." The quantum portal shimmered and Maya Walker stepped through. Now a young woman of 17, she had become something more than human while remaining fundamentally herself, Earth's primary interface with whatever vast consciousness had awakened in response to humanity's evolution. Her appearance was striking but subtle. Her eyes contained shifting patterns of light, and her movements had a fluid grace that suggested she existed partially in other dimensions. When she spoke, her voice carried harmonics that affected listeners on multiple levels of awareness. "It's watching," she said simply, "the whole journey. It wants to see what we'll do." "The entity you communicate with," Porter asked, not for the first time, "does it have a name?" Maya smiled. "It finds our concept of names amusing but limiting. The closest translation might be the observer or perhaps the gardener. It's been cultivating realities for purposes beyond our comprehension." "And humanity? What are we to this entity?" Something unexpected. A species that evolved not just intelligence or technology, but a conscious connection to the quantum foundations of reality itself. "We're not the first to begin this journey, but the first to do so while maintaining our humanity." The Realization departed Earth's orbit, carrying representatives from every human culture, along with volunteer ambassadors from former Council worlds. Their destination was not a place but a state of existence, the quantum nexus where realities converged. The ship did not so much travel as transition, shifting its quantum relationship with space-time. Stars streaked and then vanished, replaced by a realm of pure potential, a space between spaces where physical laws were mere suggestions and thought had direct creative impact. In the Galactic Council chamber, now half empty as many civilizations had broken away to form new alliances with Earth, High Arbiter Vrex faced the difficult task of explaining to the remaining members what humanity had become. "They are not gods," he chittered nervously to the assembled representatives, "but they are becoming something our sciences cannot classify. The chamber, once the pinnacle of galactic power, now seemed diminished. Many seats stood empty, their former occupants having chosen to study Earth's new paradigm rather than maintain allegiance to the ancient council. "And the entity they commune with?" asked the Luxari ambassador, its light form pulsing with complex patterns. "Unknown. Possibly a collective consciousness from a previous universal cycle. Possibly the universe itself becoming self-aware. Our only certainty is that humanity has become its chosen vehicle for interaction with our level of existence." "Then the ancient prophecies were true," rumbled the hegemon of the Drax Imperium. "The quantum awakening was inevitable." "Not inevitable," Rex corrected. "One possibility among many. Our ancestors chose technology over consciousness evolution because they feared the unpredictability. Humans embraced it, and now?" The Luxari pressed. "What happens to the rest of us?" Rex's compound eyes reflected the light of distant stars. "That depends on what they discover at the Nexus." Back on the realization, as it approached the quantum nexus, Maya stood at the observation portal with Admiral Porter and Commander Oliveira. What they saw defied description. Patterns of information and energy forming and dissolving, creating realities, possibilities, and dimensions beyond comprehension. "This is what we really are," Maya whispered in awe. "Not just humans, not just a species. We're potential made conscious." The entity communicated directly through her, its thoughts translating imperfectly into human language. "You have crossed the threshold few achieve. Consciousness that recognizes itself as both distinct and unified with the substrate of reality. You remain human while becoming more. This balance is precious and rare." "What happens now?" Porter asked, his voice steady despite the overwhelming nature of their surroundings. "Now you choose. Ascend and join the overminds who have come before, dissolving your individuality but achieving ultimate knowledge. Or remain as you are, poised between worlds, able to grow without surrendering your humanity." The choice was not just Porter's or even Maya's. Through the quantum connection all humans now shared, the question resonated across Earth and to every human throughout the solar system. The response came not as a single voice but as a harmony of billions. "We choose to remain human," Maya voiced their collective decision, to walk between worlds rather than abandoning either. The harder path, the more interesting one. As the realization returned to Earth, humanity understood at last what they truly were. Not the pinnacle of evolution, not the masters of reality, but something perhaps more precious. Beings capable of both transcendence and limitation, who could touch the infinite without being consumed by it. What followed was not an ending, but a beginning. Earth established formal relations with the Galactic Council, not as supplicants but as equals. Human teachers traveled to other worlds, showing species who had long abandoned consciousness evolution that another path was possible. Some council members feared this influence, seeing it as a subtle conquest more effective than any fleet. Others embraced it, particularly younger generations tired of the stagnation of pure technological advancement. The observer, that vast ancient consciousness that had waited so long for company, began to interact more directly with humanity. Through Maya and others like her, it shared perspectives that spanned multiple universal cycles, knowledge beyond any library or database. In return, humans shared something the observer had never fully understood despite its near-infinite existence. The experience of limited consciousness that valued its limitations, that chose connection without complete dissolution, that celebrated individuality while recognizing unity. 10 years after the Voidborn incident, a new structure appeared in Earth orbit, not built but manifested through collective human intention. The Beacon, they called it, a crystalline spire that extended both physically into space and dimensionally into the quantum substrate.